Every time I sit down to write this, I wind up sitting here sobbing for hours. Do you know what it feels like to lose a parent? Senseless violence?
The vehicle is passing 3rd Avenue. Speeds are 100 miles an hour.
Almost every night, the same nightmare plays on repeat. I get a phone call around 9 at night. We think your dad is missing. Seconds turn to minutes, turns to hours. My entire family looking to me for answers. And I have none. But I still hold hope that they'll find him alive. 3 a.m. My phone rings. They found him. Dead.
Rescue response, the driver appears unconscious.
She's a murder suspect out of North Carolina, right?
I certainly never thought she would murder him. I wouldn't learn where until about a week later, where they found him, how they found him. My father was taken from me. I can't call him just to talk anymore. To him, it was bye, Dad. I love you.
That picture. that sums up Uncle Jim. This is about when he stepped in to help my mom with us when my dad stepped out. And this is, around the times that my mom tells those funny stories about coming home and Uncle Jim trying to change baby diapers with clothespin on his nose. He would figure to me, he gave up part of his life to help my mother raise my sister and I. She was a single mom of twin girls, and he gladly helped her raise us. He was the uncle that took me every summer and let me go lobstering with him and took me fishing and just make my summer. I very, very, very much looked forward to Uncle Jim coming to North Carolina. But I was definitely a little disappointed in where he bought a home, despite that being a brand new subdivision. If you went further down the road, there was a corner store. You could probably go to the corner of Uncle Jim's backyard and throw something and hit the store. It was that close. And like most corner stores in rural North Carolina, this one really didn't attract the best crowds because they would gather around the slot machines and hang out in there constantly. With all of these people, my concern was something bad was going to happen to him in that area. I kept my concerns about Uncle Jim buying a house in that neighborhood to myself because at that point, what was I going to do? He already bought the house. So, it was just like, let him be happy. And he'll find out when thinks it's going to be over in the manner it was over for him.
It's your dad. I love you. I just wanted to talk to you, so give me a call for a change of pace. All right? I'll have to come all the way home to kick your ass. All right, love you.
That's my dad. I miss him a lot. And hearing his voice helps that. When all of this was happening with my dad, I went by Kellyanne. In 2020, I changed my name to Roman. I figured out that I am trans, and so I've started to live my truth. So my dad, he was just the best thing since sliced bread to me. My dad was a kind and loving man. He really just wanted everybody to be happy. I grew up with my mom. My dad and her split up, and he moved to Nantucket. So on the weekends when I was younger, I would go to Nantucket and we would go out on the boat. He was a lobsterman and a fisherman for most of his life. My dad was very, very handsome, and he was a ladies' man. He's a very free spirit, not exactly when he was younger what he wanted. I think that as he got older, he wanted to settle down. He was slowing down as far as his health and stuff goes, so I think he wanted just a companion, like a life companion. I think I was scared more than he was about the surgery. It was very, very nerve-wracking. I did something I don't usually do, which is I prayed. And I don't do that, but I did at that point. When the doctors came in and said everything went well, it was a huge weight lifted off life, his surgery, just because in a blink of an eye, it can all be taken away. So, after his surgery, he was on the up and up. He wanted a fresh start. And he found that in North Korea, was down here, and she loved it. The years after he moved to North Carolina were a little tumultuous for our relationship. I felt almost like he was abandoning me because he was so far away. And I definitely wish I had been better about keeping in contact with him.
In the morning, we walk into our meeting room, and the captain's going over the daily reports that came from the mini case came up. What stood out to me about the James Benoni case is the way the case came to us, the way that the family called. He was a missing person. They haven't talked to him in several days. When the family called, their concern was that he had recently had open heart surgery. When the original call came out, the deputy was responding to what's called a wellness check. The deputy knocked on the doors, he checked the windows, he didn't see any signs of anybody in the house. He tried to call Mr. Pranoni, no one answered. There was no vehicle in the driveway. There was no signs that someone had been there in the last couple of days. They basically told them the vehicle was there overnight. When deputies ran the plates, that's when they found that it was registered to Mr. Pranoni. And then they connected the dots with Mr. Pranoni's missing person report. That is when the case was sent up to detectives for further investigation. I mean, no one just leaves their vehicle parked in the alleyway, or in a case like this, every minute counts. So we were already behind, and we needed to move to find, one, why was his truck there? Two, where is he at? We couldn't drag our feet. I felt that Mr. Pranoni was hurt, killed. Just now it's by who, by what, where, when, where is his body if he was?
When I first saw this house, I thought, how amazing. Look what you got for yourself, this beautiful new home. And now when I see this house, it gives me knots in my stomach. Like it just, to me, they met when he was playing the slot machine at the convenience store right next door to his house. And that's when most of us didn't hear much from Uncle Jim anymore. Excited because she was a pretty woman. She was smaller in stature, had long, beautiful hair, and, he was really excited that someone was paying attention. When Uncle Jim met Sandra, he kind of just shut off on everyone. But we figured, hey, he met a woman, and, he's living his own life. He's got his new home. He's got a girlfriend. Let's let My mom called me, and she was just panicked. She was telling me that she couldn't get a hold of my Uncle Jim. She's like, please, can you just drive there? I was picturing him either hurt or sick inside of his house. Has he had a heart attack? I dropped everything I was doing and just head straight to Uncle Jim's house. I pull up on scene and I, hop out, and the deputy's like, who are you? I was like, well, I'm his Dinah. And they're like, do you have a key to the house? And I was like, no, actually I don't. And I don't know why I don't, but I don't. He was like, well, basically there's nothing I can do for them. I asked the deputy all these questions. He did have a bypass. What if he's laying on the floor? And, he explained to me the difference between entering for a well-being check or, an actual medical situation. Meaning that we could not forcibly enter the home. And then he just randomly brought up this flower garden. He's like, oh yeah, I noticed it looks like he just recently started a flower garden in the backyard. And I was like, what are you talking about, this flower garden? His backyard is like a half acre of dirt. He would never just plant a flower garden on dirt. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, that is just like a terrible sign. Your heart is just racing, takes your breath away a little bit. It's almost like you could just jump out of your own body. If it was up to me, I would have grabbed a shovel and dug up that garden myself. I just knew. I called my mom and I told her, I said, I think he's gone. You just feel like...
We were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I got the call from my cousin Danny. And he basically was just like, I don't really know how to say this, so I'm just gonna say it. But your dad, we think, is missing. And at that point, completely, I started panicking. I didn't know what to do. I mean, how do you process that? I was trying to use social media, which was how we communicated most, to get in touch with him. I also was calling his cell phone number, just kept going to voicemail. I knew something was not. Multiple phone calls from myself was very alarming.
At this point in the investigation, I'm still up in the air on whether Mr. Pernoni is just not wanting to talk to family, just out doing his own thing. I mean, he's 61 years old. He doesn't have to. It was just whether or not Mr. Pernoni is where he wants to be or not. When I go back to my desk, I'm looking at the photos of Mr. Pernoni's truck. One of the windows was rolled down and the keys were in the ignition. There were lumps of hair found throughout the car. It looked like someone got into a fight, and after reading the reports, looking at the pictures, it just did not sit well with me. Who was in the truck with Mr. Pernoni? What happened to the person? Why is there these chunks of hair in the car? I needed to tell a story, and it just was not lining up right now. We went to was to speak with the girlfriend. She had told the deputies that night that she hadn't seen him in a couple of days. But I needed to know more than just when the last time she saw him. I needed to know, what their relationship was like. Was it rocky? Were they in good standings? Now we need to hear it from her, what was actually going on. We drove to Jones County where Miss Wagner lives. I asked her if we can go inside the house to talk. And while we're in the house, I begin to ask her questions about Mr. Pernoni. I could see that she's getting upset because of the way I'm asking questions in regard to her relationship. So I asked her, I said, we found a lot of hair in Mr. Pernoni's truck. And that's when Miss Wagner said, I put Mr. Pernoni's truck in the trailer park. And she said, Mr. Pernoni told me to put it there. He was running away from law enforcement because he was in a car accident in Swansboro. And he was drinking and left the scene. He didn't want to get arrested. Vehicle changed his name so that he wouldn't be arrested by law enforcement for the accident that he did in Swansboro. And I'm like, okay, well, where was Mr. Pernoni when you put the truck there? And she said he was at home. But at this point, she didn't know where he was. What did you do with Mr. Pernoni was in my head. It makes me believe she's lying to me. But I wanted her to feel like I believed what she was saying. I wanted her to feel comfortable enough to continue talking to us. We had no body, we had no crime scene, we had nothing. We needed more. I felt that Sandra was either responsible or involved in Mr. Pernoni's disappearance.
She looked like she had lived a decently hard life. I think he saw someone he could help in the beginning. And I think that he wanted to. And he tried. It was a couple of months into it, and there were some red flags that I had seen and heard. He had once told me that she had wiped his bank account, that she had struggled with drugs. That was when I really started harping on him about separating from her. He was very insistent that she had changed her ways, that she was on the right path now, and I wasn't so sure. For his birthday in March, and he told me that he was separated and was very much so doing his own thing. I believed that she was completely out of the picture. That's what he led me to believe. That was the last time I talked to him. It was on his birthday. And I was lucky.
I called my mother when I was leaving Uncle Jim's house. My mom sounded distraught. She was anxious. She wasn't tearful yet. She was mad. And I know it's because she wanted answers. Irate with this woman. My mom stayed in touch a lot via social media messenger. And she had been sending messages to his account. And the messages were getting shorter. The language wasn't like his. And she said, I think that it's this woman using his phone sending. At this point, she was calling out Sandra. Sandra, I know this is you. What have you done to my brother? And then my uncle's social media was logged off. She said, something's happened. I just know it.
of her. She stated that the accident that Mr. Pannoni was in happened in the next town over. I knew my next steps would be to make contact with a law enforcement officer in that town to see if we can verify that the accident actually happened and there was a report taken. The victim stated that he was hit by the same vehicle that Mr. Pannoni drove, but that the vehicle fled and he identified the driver as a female instead of a male. It made me believe that the only reason Miss Wagner knew about the accident is because she was the driver, and she's the one is because she didn't want to have any contact with law enforcement. I needed to find out what she did with Mr. Pannoni. The next step is searching Mr. Pannoni's house. Once we obtained the search warrant, we headed out there with CSI investigators. Honestly, I was hoping that he may have passed of old age, but that is not what we found. Walking into the house, I noticed that it was well maintained. It was cleaned. I hate to say it, for a 61-year-old male, it was very clean. When I walked into the bathroom, I smelled bleach, as if someone had cloth shower curtain, and behind it wasn't the plastic. No one lives like that. You're going to put the plastic on to prevent the water from coming out. My automatic thought process was he's probably wrapped up in it somewhere. I can't 100% say, but that was what was going through my head. It being super clean suggests that someone needed to tell us what happened to Mr. Pannoni. There was no signs that we could see of an altercation happening there or anybody being stabbed or shot. There was nothing. They did Mr. Pannoni's room. They did the second bedroom to the right, but it was the third bedroom to the left that when they went in and they did the luminol, that it showed that there was blood on the bed frame and on the floor. Lit up where the potential for blood to have been. It is very apparent that At this time, I'm standing outside talking to my supervisors about the information we got. And as we're walking to the back of the house, we noticed that there was a flower bed. Brand new mulch, border, no weeds. My hair was standing on the back of my neck. I was pulling at the flower bed. Everything came up. All the flowers were still in the plastic pots that they come in. While they're digging in the flower bed, they were able to see plastic. And as they got closer, they did smell bleach. Unearthed the body that was there. Were able to confirm it was Mr. Pannoni. And yes, he was in fact wrapped in the shower curtains. Now we know where he was killed. We need to know by who.
When Detective Flores called me, her voice was shaking a lot, and I just kind of knew that something was wrong. She told me where they found him, right outside the back door to his house, buried underneath a freshly planted garden of pansies. I don't even remember hanging up the phone, to be quite honest. I just remember, and kind of diving in bed with her. Just a mess. It definitely felt like a nightmare. It was more of a night terror. I thought at any moment I would wake up and it would be fine, everything would be normal, and Dad would still be alive, and it wasn't the case.
Mr. Pernoni was stabbed around 4 times in the heart. It looked like they attempted to dismember him by sawing through his elbow. Seeing that would indicate rage. Someone enraged stabbed him multiple times. Indicates someone who's, at this point, the prime suspect was Sandra Wagner. Because of the news being out there that Mr. Pernoni was found, there was a lot of moving parts that we had, so we had to move quick. So the next day, I needed bank records for Mr. Pernoni so I could track down when his last purchase was. The financial records came back to the company and was able to find after March, beginning in April, there were no more purchases done by Mr. Pernoni. They were all done by Sandra Wagner. They did have surveillance. So we were able to get the time frame of the transaction and then go to the facility, and they were able to bring up the cameras for that time, alone making the purchase, and Mr. Pernoni was not there. One of the transactions were for a hardware store where she purchased 2 coolers and then returned the coolers a couple of days after. And then I needed to also track those flower pots that we found, the flower pots, and documented the UPC code that were on the flower pots. Based on the UPC code, we were able to track it back to a garden center where it was sold, where she would purchase bleach and cleaning products like that. And then, of course, the flowers, the border, the lights, the mulch that she put on and then it shows her going to the ATM and withdrawing about $600. And then 2 days after that, she withdrew another $600. I can't prove it, but given that she did try to chop Mr. Pernoni up, I believe she may have tried body parts in there. Because of how difficult the actual plan was to perform, she stopped and had to come up with a new one. Sandra Wagner did this, and now here is the evidence showing that she was involved. And even though we don't have her actually doing the murder, this is circumstantial evidence surrounding it, the murder. I needed to get Sandra back into the office and have a formal sit-down interview with her. I gave her a phone call, asked her if she would come in. She stated she wasn't going to come in until she spoke with her attorney. So we set up a time for, I believe it was 3:30 came, went, Miss Sandra didn't show up. I tried to call her a couple of times, and there was no answer. At that point in the investigation, there was a warrant issued out for her. She was a wanted individual. Not knowing where Sandra was, I felt like a disappointment. It's like, I had her, she was here. How long until we actually get her behind bars and let her answer for what she did? Sandra was scared. And when you're scared, you do stupid things. And in this situation, it caused her to run from, you can only run for so long. When they found her leaving the grocery store, she took off in her vehicle and led them on a high speed.
3rd Avenue, Ross Park Circle, 3rd Avenue. speeds are 100 miles an hour. I can't see her.
I lost visual.
Alright, she's coming up on Columbia Highway. Somebody else take it, please. I'm too far behind.
Where she crashed into a tree.
Rescue response. The driver appears unconscious. No man here.
No, not right now.
All right, she's breathing.
All right, what do we got? We got breathing?
We got. All right, got gloves. Hold on.
All right, just keep her stable. Just keep her stable.
Let me go get my phone. All right, she's coming too. She's coming too.
When I found out, so much relief because now I could tell the family we got her. Now they don't have to stay up at night worrying, is this ever going to be finished? Are they going to ever have closure? She's manipulated him since day one. She knew what she wanted when she got through the door. She knew what she was going to use him for. And then eventually, when it became time that she couldn't get any more from him. Working cases like this is why I got into law enforcement. I was able to help a family get through the worst time in their life. We were able to give them justice.
This is just, the first time I've seen that. But to know this is, my uncle bought this home and this is where he ended up is just heartbreaking. Some of my family members, and hope that they don't have to see, but yeah, it's very hard to look at that photo. My mom was an emotional disaster. She could not stop crying. She was a mess. The hardest feeling in the world for me is to see my mom broken like that. And that's exactly how she feels like she convinced him to move here. And had he not moved here, he would still be alive. She needs to let go of all that pain. She needs to let go and understand that Uncle Jim is in a good place. And it's time to enjoy her life again. And it's not her fault. That right there, that is Uncle Jim. Always shirtless, always barefoot, and always fishing. That's the way I want to remember my Uncle Jim. Every time I take my boat out, I shore, and you can just close your eyes for a minute and just hear the seagulls and hear the waves and just remember a happier, simpler time.
The milestone that I wish my dad was there for. Also didn't get to know the real me. I think he would have been very excited to have another son, as much as he loved calling me his little girl. He was so proud, and it was one of the only accomplishments that he was there for. And just the smile on his face. In this moment, he was so proud. And I was so happy he was there. It was a really good day. smiles and talks a lot. And he always kissed the top of my head. Telling his story is definitely a part of my healing journey. Definitely still in that healing process, and I really don't think that it'll ever stop. It just gets less. A way that I like to look at grief is around it. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do. That I'm sorry this happened to him. That he died alone. I just want him to be at peace. I hope that he's comfortable wherever he is, fishing.
I can't understand you.
My mom shot me with a gun. I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding from the floor.
I remember my brother said, "It smells like gunpowder." And then I see my mom at me. Put my hands up. I'm yelling, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." In that moment, nothing felt real. Why? Why would she do this?
As I open the door, I find two people at my feet. They're just covered in blood. The eyes open, and they're looking right at me. And I asked, who did this? And they just stared at me and said, I did, please kill me. It wasn't until that moment I realized that this wasn't a victim. This was a suspect.
I see someone who's insane, who's lost her mind. Because this is not my daughter. I know that this wouldn't happen if one did not just cry a lot. I don't know why it happened to a happy family. I don't know what the occasion is, but she's so pretty with her dress. They just love each other so much. I miss you both. I was in the Philippines in October of 2010. I got this phone call. It was from my daughter in California. And she just said, "Mom, Tony and I just left the hospital, and we would like you to be the first to know." She said, "I have cancer." Cancer to me is something that's not curable at that time. That's why I came right away, just so I could be with her. She had stage 2 breast cancer, then she had a double mastectomy. I know there were many drugs that Ana Maria was taking, so that worried me. I did a little research on some of them,
And they were hallucination producing, and they were depression producing, If I would ask her when she comes out from the clinic what happened, and she'd just say, "Oh, I'm okay, Mom, I'm okay. The doctor said I'm okay." Asked, "Mother, when are you coming to visit?" And I just said, "Oh, soon." And he would say, When is soon?" I said, "It's surprise, but it's in the month of May," because I wanted to surprise Anna Maria for Mother's Day. I remember his response, "Oh," in our language, "Oh, matagal pa. Oh, that's a long time yet. Come here now." But I didn't get the clue. If I only was told, if I was only informed, I would have come running.
I felt like I was very surrounded by loving parents, and I was closer to my mom, both physically and emotionally. I had just started high school. When she was first diagnosed, her morale was still very high, and her spirits were still hopeful and optimistic, and it was like that for a few months. Behavior-wise, her eating habits, her social habits, they went to the doctor about her insomnia, and so the doctor gave her some sleeping pills, which I remember not working. I remember feeling worried for her. She tried to make it seem like it wasn't affecting her, but in hindsight now, there's most definitely a depression. I wake up around 9 a.m. and I remember walking to the kitchen and I see my dad already cooking. And so we wake our mom up for breakfast. But she was being really slow with her movements. She was talking very slow, which had been kind of normal in the last week. She would just be staring off with no thoughts behind it. It was almost like she was just numb to everything around her. We thought the medication was... After my dad sent her to bed, I just went to the living room, and then I hear a loud bang. And I thought the TV had fallen from the wall, just to see where that noise came from. And this is where I think my memory gets a little foggy, but this is what I remember. I remember my brother said, "It smells like gunpowder." And then I remember my dad, his eyes wide open, and he runs straight into my mom's room. And I'm right behind him. And then I stood by the doorway, and I see her sitting on the bed, pointed away from her. And so my dad rushes in to try to grab it from her. And then I see her shoot him. And he falls. My first instinct was to run away. I was about maybe 10 feet from the back door to get out of the house, and I remember stopping because I was thinking. I see my mom walking towards me with a gun in her hand, pointed right at me. Put my hands up. I'm yelling, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." And then I hear a loud bang, and I fall to the ground. I remember seeing my arm just gush. I realize I'm still alive. So I grab my phone, I I run outside. I wasn't even thinking about anyone else besides myself in that moment because I was afraid that I was gonna die.
What I remember of the call on the radio, mother had shot him and his dad, and something like he's left the house. As I pull up to the house and park across the street, my focus at that time is on that house. The fact that it was so quiet, there was nobody out. To get a call like that and to have all this chaos, it seemed like, you kind of half expect to come around the corner and have people screaming at you and yelling at you that they need help or kind of directing you where to go. None of that. There's nobody. And as I turn to my right to look down that street, I see movement. There's a woman and she's just full on sprint running at me. And I can see she's holding something in her hand. I'm in the worst spot. And I know it. I go back to that call of my mom shot me. So my mind at the time is a female shooter. And here I got a house to my front left that is a threat. And now I have someone to my right running at me with something in their hand. At that point, I know I'm in a bad position, and I need to get out of this position quick. I'm pointing my gun at her, and she's closing the gap pretty quick. And I can't hear her. I'm looking at her hands. Bad, or what was going on, but as she came, I was able to process that she was holding a telephone in her hand. She wasn't a threat. And now everything came crashing down that it was real.
I screamed for help from the neighbors. And no one really responded, so I called 911. I don't remember speaking anything, I just remember screaming. My hands were so shaky, I was just in hysterics. So everything that came out of my mouth was just hysterical screaming.
Help! Help!
You're talking too fast. I can't understand you.
My mom shot me with a gun. I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding from the floor. And she just shot me right now in the arm and I'm bleeding.
Away from the house and away from the...
Brother's in there. Please, hurry up, please. My brother is in there.
Okay, sir, hold on. I'm going to get the sheriff's department on the phone.
So at that point, I just run straight into my neighbor's house. And I'm banging on her door. She starts panicking as well, but she calls 911. When the police come, I'm yelling at them, telling them, hey, my brother is still in there. And they were saying that they were gonna get him out. But they didn't say that about my dad. I was asking them, where's my dad? Like my dad was still in there. And then I remember my neighbor saying, your dad's gonna be fine. And right away I knew that he was gone. I was just... I was also scared that about everything, like what's going to happen in my future, would I go into foster care? was just trying to make sense of everything because in that
I'm looking at the house. Based on the call, the threat is there. My eyes are on that house the whole time. It's like a heightened alert. You're thinking about trees and walls and what do you have for cover. And then I see movement from the house. And that movement coming out the front door was a little boy. And he had a big gun in his hand. And he comes running out that door, looking right at me. And all I see is that gun in his hand. Aimed a gun right at a 9-year-old kid holding a gun in his hand. And my mindset is, I'm gonna have to shoot a kid on Mother's Day. And I just remember yelling. I remember screaming at the top of my lungs, anything I could say to get him to drop that gun. And he's next to me screaming. I don't even know what's going on or how to even process it. But all I see is my gun and my front sights and a 9-year-old between my sights. I would have done anything for him to drop that gun. Because I knew if he didn't and he ran at me, I didn't have a choice. I was so desperate for him to drop that gun. Thank God he did. Thank God he did. As soon as it hits the ground, he comes running at me. And when he reaches us, he jumps into the arms of the woman. The look, I never want to see it again. I hope I never see it again. Can't imagine what he just went through to have that look. And now I'm a part of it. I just got him to drop that gun. Somebody called me to help. I almost shot him. Doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel like you made a situation 10 times worse for a kid. My training tells me to get in that house and find the threat. We press up right to that house. And as we're at that door, I can hear sounds inside the house. And it's like this moaning. You know it's human, but you know it's somebody dying.
When I was living for the United States, I saw Antonio's son, the son of Antonio by the first wife. I approached him and I said, "Oh, we're taking the same flight." And all of a sudden, one of these, "Don't you know what happened?" I said, "No." She was sort of angry, and she said, "Anna Marie shot my dad, and she shot Tony Boy." That's what she said. And then they started to call passengers to go in now. That's it. With the 12 and a half to 14 hours flight from the Philippines to LA, I couldn't imagine what happened.
As we walk into the house, I hear the sound of somebody dying inside on the left. You go to the known, and that's a term that we use, go to the known. And at this point, the known is the sound. So we're moving towards the sound. We're going to bypass rooms, doors, everything to get to the known. And that's all our focus is on at that time. As I open the door, I find two people at my feet. And they're essentially facing each other, laying on the ground, hugging each other. But they're just covered in blood. And it's almost like... You see those scenes of like people put rose petals in a heart shape and people lay in between them and hug. It's almost like that, but it's not rose petals, it's blood, and it's a pool. I could clearly tell that the older gentleman had a clear gunshot straight to the chest, and my partner is trying to help him, trying to feel for a pulse, any breathing pulse, anything. The one on the right, bald, younger, was crying. And I'm looking at these two men on the ground in this position and going me. At that point, I thought both of them were victims. The eyes are closed and you can see like the whites of the eyes, even though the eyes are closed. And I nudged them with my foot and the eyes open and they're looking right at me. And I asked, who did this? And I have no idea. And I'm like, who did this? And I say it twice, who did this? And they just, please kill me. And at that moment, I heard the voice and I realized it was a female. I realized that this wasn't a victim. This was a suspect, and the blood that she's got all over her is the blood from her husband. It wasn't until that moment that I knew what was going on, who caused all this chaos, and they're begging me to kill him. When she told me that she had done this horrible thing, and she asked me to kill her, her eyes weren't looking at me, they were looking through me. I thought it was shock. In my mind, I just did. She just shot her husband and killed him, and I find her on the floor embracing him. I took it as she's in shock of what she just did.
When I woke up from the hospital, there was one officer who sat by me the entire time. I wish I knew his name, but he sat by me and just made sure that I was alive. And he was the first person that I saw when I woke up. I could tell that he cared. And that meant a lot to him, knowing that I'd lost both my parents that day. But once I started to gather my thoughts and just remember what happened, it was just like a deep sense of despair. I just felt like everything was sinking. I couldn't move. I was stuck in bed. I didn't know where any of my family was, where my brother was. I was so afraid of her. I couldn't understand why she would do that to my family, my dad, myself. I just couldn't understand how someone could claim to love their family so much, yet try to take them away.
I fired it first in the ceiling.
Okay, why?
So they'd come in.
Okay.
And my husband came in first. So I shot him. And then I was gonna shoot my two sons, and then I was gonna shoot myself. I wanted my whole family to go with me for my death.
Was that when you were trying to shoot yourself in the side of the neck or the head, where you have this big powder burn?
Yes.
Can you explain to me when you first formulated this idea of taking your family's life and your own?
Every night, for 2 weeks.
What's
I was scared.
okay? What were you scared of?
But I couldn't do it.
Okay. So what changed your mind on Sunday?
I said I could finally do it.
In your mind?
In my mind.
The deputy sheriff interviewed her the next morning. How could you, at 8 o'clock in the morning, be interviewed right away? Why did you let her rest for a while? Her eyes were focused on one area. She was looking but not seeing. I'm sure my daughter was not in her right mind. She wouldn't do that if she was sane. If she was in her right mind, she wouldn't. This, for me, is a result of depression. I already had my own understanding about how it happened. And I believe it's the medications. It's her medications. I believe that she had an overdose. I believe that Anna Marie worsened because of the medications. Some of this caused hallucination. Some of this caused depression, and some of this cause you to just lose touch with the world. I know how Antonio and I know that this wouldn't happen if one did not just snap. Someone who's insane, who's lost her mind. Because this is not my daughter. This is not Ana Maria. This is the person that shot Antonio.
I am sorry. My plan didn't work out. It's so.
Before the gunshots, it was just, it was Mother's Day, so we gave her, like, the presents and stuff, so she was happy. My mom was sitting up and had a gun in her hand, and I think she shot my dad's room, and I was there with a pillow covering my face and stuff. And then I saw my mom on the ground. I saw the gun pointed to her head, and she, like, shot him. But I think there was no bullets left because she was still alive, so I went out and told my mom to, like, calm down and stuff, but she wouldn't, so I took the gun, and then with the gun, they told me to put down the gun, and I did.
He knew his brother was shot. His understanding is that mom wants to kill him. He watched his mom try to kill herself and miss. It just amazes me how strong he was and the things that he did. Anyone got there.
How you doing, Alfonso? I'm doing fine. You doing okay? Yeah. How do you feel about everything, Matt? I'm just kind of sad. Yeah.
I knew I had to write a report. I knew it's a priority. So I went and sat in my car and rolled up the windows, and I wrote. My thought went to those kids. My thought went to How will they ever be able to celebrate Mother's Day? They just watched their mother execute their father. How will they ever be able to process that even occurring, much less on Mother's Day?
My grandma came to the hospital. She had found out at the airport what happened. She was ready to come here just for vacation, but when she found out at the airport what happened, she felt the need to take care of my brother and I. And I remember we cried together. She hugged me. Was at the hospital. He had visited me with my grandma. I know that prior to him visiting me, he had been at a foster home for a few days because there was nowhere else to place him until my grandma got custody of him. I didn't really know what to say to him. I couldn't bring it up. I didn't want to, and there was just nothing else to talk about. I blamed her for everything. My mom was on all this medication that was messing with her mind. I'm sure she was sad, down, maybe even depressed. But my dad's gone, and I almost lost my life too. To excuse those two things because she was not mentally okay. There was just so much hatred, so much anger. Even if her name was just brought up, I would just get angry. I didn't want anything to do with my mom ever again. I didn't really know too much about what was going on in the trial until the DA called me up, and that's when he explained to me what they were charging her for, that it was going to be first-degree murder with premeditation and accessory with lying in wait. He just said, we're going to ask for life, and I said yes. I didn't want her to be in jail forever. I hadn't even gotten close to being able to think about forgiving her, so it was very much, I wanted her locked up and gone. Lock her up, throw away the key was my mental state at that time.
I was told it was a murder-suicide plan to kill everyone and then kill herself. I honestly don't know what her motive was. I know that she had some medical problems. I was told that she had recently gone through cancer treatment. I kept thinking, man, was it the cancer? I only went to court that one day to testify. Even though she sat there, I didn't look at her. I didn't want the jury to think I was some angry law enforcement officer staring down this murder suspect. That's not what I wanted. I didn't feel anger towards her. I felt sad for her. I felt sad for what she had put her kids through. I felt sad that how she could do that. She has to live knowing what she did to her family. I feel sorry that she has to live knowing what she put her boys through. I got pulled, but she's the one that pulled everyone in.
I remember the first time after the trial ended, and that was when I felt more at peace with myself and with everything that happened. When I asked her if she remembered anything, she just claims to have blacked it all out of her memory. So according to her, she doesn't remember anything from that day. To me, it just feels like that's her out of her memory, or it just really is due to the amount of drugs she was taking. Over time, I've grown to realize that that wasn't her behind the gun. It was the drugs behind the gun. She's apologized to me so many times. She said that she doesn't expect my forgiveness. She says she's sorry and she regrets everything that she's done. But I don't excuse what happened. I just can't look past the fact that I was shot and I lost a dad just because she was insane. All the nights I've cried myself to sleep, or didn't sleep for that matter, or even that every time that I've thought about killing myself, I've always blamed her for to see her in jail for the rest of her life. So, to me, this is justice.
Life sentence. I have seen and read a lot about life inside prison. I wish I didn't believe them. But my daughter always tells me, "Oh, Mom, I'm okay." But this is something that you cannot make me fully believe. A visit with her, I still cry inside my car. I cry because I couldn't imagine my daughter going through all this, because she's a good girl. I've always been proud of her. I've always been proud of her because I know that she's a survivor. What happened doesn't haunt me. I just cannot imagine that it happened, because knowing that they're a very loving family, I didn't even think that they could shout at each other. And the medicines, I still cry a lot. I don't know why it happened to a happy family.
I miss looking at photos like these, along with a lot of good memories and happy times and a lot of laughs and jokes. Just a lot of good moments. I feel like my dad was my mom's biggest fan and biggest supporter out of anyone in the family. He dedicated his whole life to taking care of her. So, just devastates me so much more. He was always there for me.
There are houses that breathe, not with lungs, of course, but with something subtler, the way the air shifts when you walk in, or how the floorboards sigh underfoot as if exhaling. I used to think it was just old wood and temperature, but after I moved into 19 Ash Grove Lane, I learned better. The house was supposed to be a fresh start. After my divorce, I wanted silence, real silence, the kind that city apartments could never give. I found the listing online. Charming two-bedroom cottage, countryside views, recently renovated. The photos showed golden afternoon light spilling through lace curtains. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful, maybe, but I was tired of noise and people. When I arrived, the real estate agent, a man named Clark, avoided looking directly at me. "Lovely place," I said, walking across the creaking hallway. "Has it been empty long?" He cleared his throat. "A few months, give or take. The last owner left abruptly." "Why?" "Couldn't say," Clark muttered. "But everything's in working order. You'll like it here." He handed me the keys and left before I could ask more. 1. The house that listens. The first few nights were uneventful. The house had the usual sounds: pipes groaning, wind pressing against windows, and that rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock I found in the living room. It was on the third night that I noticed something strange. There was a second door at the end of the hallway upstairs. It wasn't on the floor plan, painted the same pale cream as the walls. It blended almost too well, as though someone had tried to make it disappear. When I tried the knob, it didn't turn. Locked. I thought nothing of it at first. Old houses often had sealed rooms, storage, crawl spaces, who knows. But that night, while I was brushing my teeth, I heard something from the other side of the wall. A faint, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate. I turned off the faucet and held my breath. It stopped. The next morning, I checked again. The door was still locked. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. I almost laughed at myself for being paranoid. 2. The neighbor. A few days later, I met my neighbor, a gray-haired woman named Mrs. Everett, who lived across the road. "You're the new tenant?" she asked. Her tone wasn't unfriendly, just cautious. "Yes. Moved in last week." She nodded slowly. "You took the Ash Grove house." Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. "Did you know the previous owner?" I asked. Her lips pressed thin. "A woman named Helen. Kept to herself. No family. People said she went missing last winter." Missing. Police came. They never found her. Mrs. Everett's eyes flicked to the upper window of my house. "You'll want to keep that door upstairs closed." I frowned. "What door?" "The second one," she said quietly. "You'll know it when you hear it." 3. Voices in the wall. By the second week, the tapping returned. Louder this time. Sometimes it came at midnight, sometimes just before dawn. I recorded it on my phone. The sound was faint, but distinct, like fingernails against wood. Then came the whispering. Not real words at first, more like the breath of someone murmuring from behind a wall. I'd freeze, waiting, trying to make sense of the noise. Once, I thought I heard my name. Daniel. It came so close to my ear that I flinched and spun around. No one was there. I started leaving lights on at night. I even tried sleeping downstairs, but the sound followed faint tapping, whispering. The creak of floorboards in rooms that should have been empty. 4. The second key. I called Clark, the real estate agent. "There's a locked door upstairs. Do you have the key?" His tone changed instantly. "Which door?" "The one at the end of the hall." A long silence. "There shouldn't be a door there." "Well, there is. I can send you a picture." "No need," he said quickly. "Just don't touch it. I'll come by next week." He never did. The day after that call, I found something out in the kitchen drawer, an old brass key. I didn't remember putting it there. It wasn't modern. Its handle was ornate, shaped like a serpent coiled around itself. I knew what it was for before I even tried. That night, after too many glasses of whiskey and too little sleep, I stood before the second door. The tapping had started again, louder, more insistent. I turned the key. The lock clicked open. The door swung inward on its own. 5. The room that shouldn't be. It was small, no bigger than a closet. Dust drifted in the light from the hallway, and the air smelled of mildew and something sweet rot under perfume. There was only one piece of furniture, a mirror. An oval mirror, its glass cracked in the center. The frame was carved wood, painted black. I stepped closer. My reflection stared back, pale, tired, hollow-eyed. Then something moved behind me. In the reflection, the door was still open, but there was a shadow standing in the hallway. Not my shadow, too tall, too still. Its outline wavered as if underwater. When I turned around, nothing was there. But when I looked back into the mirror, it was closer. My breath fogged the glass. The shadow reached out a hand, and for a split second, I saw fingers press against the inside of the mirror from the other side. I slammed the door shut and ran downstairs. 6. The journal. I thought I was losing my mind, so I started looking through the house for clues, anything left behind. In the attic, buried under a tarp, I found an old leather-bound book. It was Helen's journal. The last few entries were shaky, written in red ink that had bled into the paper. The house watches. The second room calls at night. I hear her now. She says she's me. If anyone finds this, do not open the mirror. It is not glass, it's a door. The final line was just one word, written over and over. Remember. 7. The thing in the mirror. After reading that, I tried to stay away from the room, but the whispering grew worse. Sometimes I'd wake up with the door open, even though I was sure I'd locked it. Once, I found muddy footprints leading from the hallway to my bed. Bare feet, too small to be mine. The mirror started to change. I could see shapes moving inside it, faint, like smoke. Faces that weren't mine. I covered it with a blanket, but by morning, the blanket was gone. Then came the dreams. I'd dream of standing in that same room, staring into the mirror. Only this time my reflection smiled back when I didn't. It whispered things, secrets I'd never told anyone. Things about my ex-wife, my failures, my guilt. It knew everything. 8. Mrs. Everett's warning. I went to see Mrs. Everett again. When she opened the door, her face went pale. "You opened it, didn't you?" I didn't deny it. She sighed, trembling slightly. Helen did too. That's why she disappeared. The mirror feeds on memory, on self. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to, she said. Just don't look into it again. Cover it with salt. Burn sage. Do something before it learns your name. That night, I tried to follow her advice. I poured salt across the doorway. I even smashed the lock. But when I came back an hour later, the salt was gone. Swept aside. The door was open again. 9. The reflection. I stopped sleeping. My reflection began to change subtly at first. It would blink a second too late, smile when I didn't. One night, I stood before the bathroom mirror and whispered, "What do you want?" It grinned. "Let me in." The lights flickered. My reflection stepped forward, but I didn't. For a moment, it moved on its own, pressing its hand against the glass, the same way the shadow had done. Then the mirror cracked a jagged line, splitting through my reflection's face. I stumbled back, screaming. When I looked again, everything was normal. But my reflection still smiled, faintly, like it knew something I didn't. 10. The disappearance. 2 nights later, Mrs. Everett came knocking. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I think the house is haunted," I whispered. "I can't leave. Every time I pack, I forget what I'm doing. I lose hours." Her eyes filled with pity. "It's begun." Before she left, she pressed something into my hand, a silver cross. "Keep this on you, and whatever you do, don't go near the mirror tonight." I tried to obey, but around midnight, the house began to breathe again, deep, shuddering exhalations. The air grew cold, heavy, electric. Then came the voice. "Daniel." It was my ex-wife's voice. Soft, sad. "Please," it whispered. "Let me out." Against every instinct, I went upstairs. The door was wide open. The mirror was glowing faintly like moonlight trapped under glass. And inside it, I saw her face. "Sarah," I breathed. She reached toward me. "Help me." Without thinking, I reached back. The glass rippled under my touch, cool, liquid, alive. Then a hand shot out, grabbing my wrist, pulling hard. I screamed and tried to yank free, but the force was inhuman. As I was dragged toward the mirror, I caught one last glimpse of my reflection. It was smiling, and it wasn't me. 11. Aftermath. They found the house weeks later. Empty. The furniture coated in dust. The mirror shattered across the floor. Mrs. Everett told the police she'd seen lights in the windows for days, after someone moving around at night. But when they searched, they found nothing. Except one thing. A new door upstairs. Behind it, a small, windowless room. And on the wall, a fresh mirror, unbroken, perfectly clean. When the officers looked into it, they swore they saw movement. Just a flicker, a shadow, like someone standing behind the glass, waiting. They called the place Crow Hollow because when the wind had its way, the valley filled with a black, busy noise like a congregation. It sat 3 miles off the county road, where the map showed nothing but contour lines and a broken track. People who lived nearby kept to themselves and to schedules. School bell at 8, market at noon, lights out by 10. Crow Hollow itself had been empty for years, its farmhouse a hunched thing under moss and shadow. Locals said the family who'd lived there left in the middle of the night and locked the door. They left a kettle on the boil. They left a chair turned backward to the table. If you asked for specifics, you'd get specifics that contradicted one another. The Hendersons would tell you that Agnes Holloway, the last owner, knew how to coax hens out of winter with a song and that she'd been decent to stray dogs. The Millers swore Agnes kept a ledger of favors and used it to shame people into doing work. Teenagers told each other the Hollow House hungered, but they said it like a joke. Old Mr. Kemp said it had teeth and was best not spoken of. Mostly, people steered their wagons and their gazes elsewhere. Irene Mercer came because she liked the house's shape in the photographs, low eaves, a steep roof that looked as if it had been carved with a slow hand, shutters like folded eyelids. She was 32 and had recently left a job cataloging old manuscripts in the city. Dealing with brittle papers and their secrets had been part of her life, and the Hollow House promised more of the same, but with a cleaner, quieter air. She liked the idea of a place that had a history she could map, things she could name and shelve. When the real estate agent told her the house had been empty for a long while, she saw potential. When the agent mentioned the rumor that nobody wanted it, Irene heard something else, a contract with silence that could be negotiated. The first week was all work and the thrift of patience. Irene scrubbed the kitchen sink until it shone like a small mirror, cleared a mantle of soot-blackened trinkets, and nailed shut a loose floorboard that had been flapping like a tongue. She found objects tucked where you tuck things to forget, a child's shoe wrapped in newspaper, a rusted hairpin, a bundle of letters tied with twine. The letters were brittle and full of tidy handwriting that spoke of weather and chores and, in one instance, the phrase, "keep what must be kept." She cataloged them in a small notebook date found. Location. Contents not because she felt duty-bound to posterity, but because cataloging turned unease into usefulness. On the 8th night, while rain made the fields look like black glass, Irene woke to a sound she couldn't place, not exactly tapping, not quite scratching, a staccato that came from the attic above her bedroom. She dressed and climbed the narrow stairs. The attic smelled of dust and cedar and something older, a faint metallic trace like coins left too long in a drawer. In a corner she found a pile of hymnals and a wooden crate filled with little wooden tokens, each token hand-painted with a name. The names were scrawled in ink that had bled like dried blood. M. Holloway, T. Kemp, E. Mercer. Her breath went tight. She might have laid a trick of nerves, but the attic's shadows seemed to take offense. When she reached for a token, her fingers brushed others, and they rattled like 100 small hearts. The sound below became a single, articulate knock, 3 quick raps, pause, 2. It was a rhythm she'd later find in other places, a metrical insistence like a pulse someone meant to be obeyed. Irene put the tokens in her pocket and went downstairs. The kitchen clock, which had been dead when she moved in, ticked once and then again and fell into an acute silence that made her ears ring. It was as if the house had been waiting for something to move it back into time. After that there were patterns. Objects shifted. A spoon in the butter dish when she'd left it in the sink. A photograph moved from the mantel to the hearth. A scarf draped over a chair that had been empty when she left the room. Sometimes she would find the faint impression of a palm in the dust on a windowsill as if someone had put their hand to glass and cupped it. She told herself these were the house's small animals or her own inattentive absent-mindedness. She wrote possible animal activity in her notebook. Cataloging helped her keep fear at a distance. Then came the names. They appeared in places where one would only see names if one looked for the scaffold of memory. Carved into the underside of the dining table, sewn into a patchwork blanket, whittled on the back of a chair. They happened in handwriting not her own. Sometimes they were names of people Irene knew only through the town story Shalloway, Kemp, Miller. Others were unknown. Always, the house seemed to be labeling itself, or asking to be labeled. At the bottom of the attic crate of tokens, she had found one with her own initials, though she had not carved them there and no one had given her a token. Her name looked older than it should have. The ink darkened as if decades had passed in a single night. Payment demands are never loud in small places. They are polite as a closing remark. The house asked for nothing at first more than tokens and memory. Irene found herself humming old tunes she couldn't place. She dreamed of a woman humming over a cradle and waking with the smell of lavender on her hands. She began to catch herself naming things aloud: the spoon on the sink, the shelf that had fallen, the name of an old neighbor taken from Mr. Kemp's mutterings. Saying names out loud made them feel real and oddly safer. as if naming something pulled a thread and made sure it stayed where it belonged. Then the ledger appeared. It should have been ordinary, a ledger bound in cracked leather found under a loose floorboard. Instead, it felt like a contract with weight. Its pages were ruled in ink that had the patient steadiness of hands that had written through war and famine. At the top of the first page, hand-lettered, was the phrase she'd seen in the letters, "Keep what must be kept." Below it, columns: name, item, given, taken, notes. The entries were coldly efficient. L. Rouse photograph given kept 1934 and J. Tomlin ring given returned 1942. As she traced the lines, her fingers trembled. Each kept was followed by a narrow note: relief observed, memory eased, child protected. She understood the ledger with a clarity that made her feel as if someone had explained the weather. The Hollow House was an accounting division old, exact tool to mediate a town's economy of favors and damages. People who had been hungry for cash had been hungrier for forgetting. If a family needed to erase a scandal, they placed a token or object in the house, and the house held the memory on their behalf. It would take something else, sometimes a small object, sometimes a name in return, but the debt would be balanced. The ledger told a history of quiet bargaining, of human transactions disguised as charity. That night, someone or something knocked on the front door. Irene froze with the ledger in her lap. The knock wasn't tentative. It was a deliberate touch. 3 knocks, pause, 2. She checked the chain. She thought of the tokens. She thought of the town's old stories. Then she opened the door. No one stood on the porch. Snow was falling thin and fine, landing like breath. The track of prints started at the gate and stopped at the step, as if someone had taken one careful step forward and vanished. On the step lay a small wooden box, the lid carved with a floral pattern. Inside the box was a photograph, a woman in a dress, her hair piled high, an infant against her chest. On the back, in a fine script, the words, "Given keep L. Rouse, 1934. Irene felt the house press close like a hand at her shoulder. She took the photograph and placed it in the ledger under given kept. That night she dreamed of a woman handing her a baby and asking, urgently, for certainty, keep her. If we cannot, she woke with her mouth bitter as iron. From then on, the ledger's requests escalated. It began, innocuously, with objects. A neighbor would bring a locket and a whispered confession. A farmer would slide a bundle of letters across the threshold with mud on his boots. Irene learned to accept these offerings with a delicate formality, to slot them in the ledger with the date and the name, and a note returned under mutual consent or kept effect lessened grief. The house, it seemed, understood the moral architecture of the town. It took what people could not keep and offered containment for a price. But the house's appetite was a learning thing. It did not stop at objects. It started taking small things alive, the memory of a boy who had drowned, and whose initials would blink out of people's speech, the name of a woman who had been seen walking with a stranger at night, the taste of a father's voice. Items could be returned, traded, replaced. Memory could not be replaced in the same way. Irene, who loved the tidy arithmetic of ledgers, learned to keep a geometry of debt where numbers did not always add. At first it requested consent numbers brought offerings themselves. Then one night she found an envelope under her pillow with a single token inside and a note. We cannot keep both. Take what you owe or the house will. The handwriting was small and precise, and as she read the words the room grew colder. She looked at the ledger. The margins at the page where her initials had been written had a fresh ink stroke. E. Mercer item, presents given, taken. She laughed then, short and wild. It startled her more than the house had. You cannot take what isn't yours, she told the plaster and the cold air, and she searched for a rational explanation. But the ledger's ink had the stubbornness of a thing meant to endure, and that night she dreamed of being counted like a head in a census. When she began to refuse, the house argued. It did so in the language of erasure. First, a neighbor forgot how to get to the market. Then a father could not recall his son's middle name. Small losses a town might accept, but then the hospital's nurse called, voice thin and trembling, to say that a patient's memory had blunted. She no longer remembered her daughter's face. Irene described the ledger's logic, and the nurse's voice went flat. Is there, the nurse asked, a way to return such a thing? The ledger had no return lines for faces. It had, in its marginalia, a note: human returns must be requisitioned. Economy will adjust. The adjustment, in practice, looked like a slow theft. Memories were transposed, redistributed in the town, like soil moved from one field to another. Irene tried to control it. She formed lists and ledgers within ledgers, color-coded efforts to balance what the house took. She held gatherings where people read aloud the names the house wanted to keep, and placed duplicates in a box she kept under the stairs. She taught the town to annotate family photographs with multiple names and data duplicates, that is, to fumble the house's ledger. The house responded with small malignances: pictures moved at night, names smudged, pages torn from albums. It learned. Sometimes the house paid in return. A woman who could not stand the echo of a certain name for decades got the relief of forgetting, and, in its place, a tenderness she could not explain, a child in a dream who never left her. A warmth in winter. The ledger annotated the effect: relief observed, quality of life plus. These entries seemed benign, compassionate even. But the ledger's arithmetic was not always vanishing for the better. It was simply conversion. Something was moved, renamed, allocated. When one person slept better, another's memory frayed. Irene found letters in the ledger she could not reconcile, names crossed out and rewritten, numbers that made no conventional sense. Once, in a corner of the binding, someone had scrawled, "We keep what we must, and what we keep keeps us." She understood the sentence the way a tax collector might. A town's preservation of itself required a hidden balance, secrets kept and silence enforced. But understanding did not make the ledger gentler. Her own small experiments to limit the house's scope had costs. She refused to accept a photograph a widow begged her to keep, refused, because the ledger's margin beside the widow's name was already crowded with kept entries.